This is Blades of Fire, a new action-adventure game developed by Mercury Steam, the studio behind games like Castlevania Lords of Shadow and more recently Metroid Dread. And if you haven't heard of this one, I don't blame you, as it doesn't have much marketing behind it. And honestly, it wasn't on my radar either until I received a review code last week. And with no major games releasing at the moment, I figured it was a good opportunity to check it out, and I am glad I did. Now at first glance, it might look like another Unreal Engine game, but that's not the case here. Blades of Fire uses Mercury Steam's proprietary Mercury Engine 6, but that doesn't mean the game is completely stutter-free. There are occasional hiccups and hitches, especially during autosaves, as you can see here. But overall, performance is more consistent here than in many recent Unreal Engine games. And visually, the game aims to evoke the PS3 Xbox 360 era, not just in gameplay and design, but also in its visual style. And despite its simplicity and the lack of modern rendering features like ray tracing, it's surprisingly demanding, especially when maxed out at native resolution. And to help with performance, the game includes a modest but effective set of graphic settings, along with support for the three major upscalers DLSS, FSR3, and XeSS. So let's kick off with the upscaling options. The game doesn't seem to include its own anti-aliasing solution and instead relies entirely on the upscalers. And rather than offering presets like quality or balance, it provides a resolution scaling slider. Here, if we set the slider to 70%, we can see that, surprisingly, FSR3 holds up quite well, even with particles, which is usually one of its weak points. And it compares favorably to both DLSS and XeSS in this regard. That said, ghosting and pixelation are still noticeable, as you can see here. Additionally, there is something wrong with DLSS in this game. Here we can see how even FSR3 looks more stable in motion compared to DLSS, which is unusual. And between FSR3 and XeSS, I think FSR3 is the best option, at least at 1440p. But if DLSS is an option, I highly recommend using the transformer model. And because the game is not supported or recognized by the NVIDIA app, enabling DLSS 4 takes a few extra steps. First, you'll need to manually update the DLSS DLL file. Then, using the NVIDIA Profile Inspector, we have to create a new profile for the game and add its executable to this profile. After this, we need to scroll down here and enable the DLSS override option, select preset K, and apply the changes. And as we can see here, DLSS 4 looks significantly better than the default DLSS 3 at a small performance cost. Let's move on to texture detail, which is crucial for 8GB GPUs. Despite the game's modest texture quality, using high texture detail, as you can see here, fully saturates the 8GB frame buffer and significantly increases system RAM usage as well, which leads to noticeable stuttering and performance issues during normal gameplay. So if you have an 8GB GPU, I highly recommend keeping texture detail at low. Next, we have object detail, which adjusts the level of detail and draw distance for various objects, as you can see here with these trees and wall vines. In terms of performance, there is only a small 2% drop when moving from performance to balanced, but jumping to quality results in a significant 23% hit. So for this one, I recommend balanced. Now regarding shadow resolution and shadow quality, I tested several areas with visible shadows, which aren't all that common in the early parts of the game, and I couldn't spot any significant visual or performance difference between the shadow options. That said, since the in-game menu warns that these settings can have a major performance impact, I recommend keeping both at balanced. Moving on to volumetric quality, this setting controls the resolution of volumetric effects, and it can have a major impact on image quality. Using performance or balance, as shown here, introduces noticeable flickering and noise around objects that include volumetric effects. In terms of performance, there is no significant difference between performance and balance, but switching to quality comes with a 16% cost. So if you have enough performance to spare, I recommend using quality, but if 16% drop is too much and you don't mind the noise, drop it to balanced. Next we have Ambient Occlusion Quality. Switching to performance disables Ambient Occlusion, which negatively impacts the visual quality. Switching to balance enables it, while quality increases its intensity and accuracy. In terms of performance, going from performance to balanced comes with a 5% drop, while going up to quality results in a 13% hit. So for this one I recommend sticking with balanced. Let's move on to reflection quality. Blades of Fire uses screen space reflections for its reflective surfaces, and using performance disables SSR entirely, while balanced enables it. Going up to quality improves both the accuracy and clarity of reflections, but it comes at a steep 23% performance cost compared to balanced, which has a much smaller 8% hit. So for this one I recommend balanced. Moving on to motion blur and depth of field quality. Motion blur doesn't seem to work properly in this game. As you can see here, the effect doesn't appear at all regardless of the option. As for depth of field, it only shows up during cutscenes and comes with about a 7% performance hit when going from performance to balanced. And I don't have any recommendation for this one. Whether you want to enable it or not comes down to personal preference. And finally we have Anisotropic Filtering, which as usual has a significant impact on the game's visuals and textures clarity while having minimal impact on performance, so I recommend keeping it at quality. So given everything we've discussed so far, these are my recommended settings for Blades of Fire. Now let's compare the performance of the optimized settings versus the quality preset at 1440p with DLSS 4 and 70% resolution scaling. And I've included both balance and quality volumetrics in the comparison, since as mentioned earlier, volumetric quality can have a significant impact on image stability, particularly around objects that include effects like fog or light shafts. Here we can see an average 25% performance improvement when switching from the quality preset to the optimized settings with quality volumetrics, and that improvement jumps to 39% when using balanced volumetrics instead. All in all, I have mixed feelings about Blades of Fire. The game itself is decent, and I really like its innovative weapon forging system and its combat mechanics. And overall, I had a good time with this one because I've been missing the old school feel of action-adventure games from the PS3 Xbox 360 era. But technically, the game leaves a lot to be desired and feels like it could have used more polish. Given its visuals, it shouldn't have such poor performance, and it's clear the game is not as optimized as it should. The graphics settings do offer significant performance improvements, but in my opinion they are poorly configured. Instead of just offering 3 options, the game should have more granularity, as there is a huge performance gap between balance and quality in several settings. And I really hope Mercury's team continues to improve the technical aspects of the game through future patches and updates. And with that we arrive at the end. Thank you so much for watching and for your time. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and if not, leave a dislike. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.